Got off the
We'll
hook.
still
Got off the hook.
give them a fighting chance.
Not yet, at least.
Check your email, Tracy.
All right, and we can't have no texting during the meeting now.
Hey, use technology any way you can.
That's a public record email.
What?
You know that meeting I went to last year, there was a big discussion
Elder this week.
Yeah.
about
I'm
texting.
okay with that.
Members texting during the
No.
meeting.
Oh, yeah.
Not even
Yeah.
paying attention to what's
Yeah.
going
Let me see
on.
if I can get in touch with somebody.
It's dangerous.
Well, not only that, I mean, what does our
I mean,
rules say?
I'm
Is
okay
allowed,
with
not
that.
allowed, because that's where they told us to regulate. Wish my wife were here. May 16th, 2016 meeting to order. Mr. Clayton, if you would lead us in prayer, and if Captain Crabtree would lead us in the pledge, I'd appreciate it.
Let's bow our heads. Heavenly Father, please be with us as we go about this meeting. Please be with all of those that are here that have business before us. Be with our young men and women as they go about serving us in the military to allow us to have meetings such as this. In our holy name we pray, amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Crabtree.
Caught him a little off guard, though, I think.
Yeah. So make sure everybody's awake this morning. Looks like I need to be the first one on the list.
Right.
All right.
Do I need to table it when we do adjustments?
As far as the agenda is concerned, we have an additional item for the sheriff to talk about. So when his time comes, we'll take care of both of those at the same time, if that's okay. Would like to add Mr. Larry Cole to the agenda. And if possible, put him as item number 2A. Let him speak his piece before we get to our long-winded discussions.
move for approval.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. We don't have anybody signed up for comments this morning, but if anybody in the audience wants to speak, now's the time.
Mr. Chairman, I should have asked before we said aye, but I did want to pull the out of the consent agenda, the Elder Abuse Week proclamation, so it may be read aloud in the public meeting, and then be also mention the program that'll be going on June 2nd at 9 o'clock at Huck Sandsbury Ford.
All right. Do I hear a motion we accept the agenda? Well, no, we ain't got to the consent agenda yet. That was next item, but I mean, that's next order of business. So,
Okay,
assume that's a motion.
it is.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, Miss Sally Vaughn.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I came to talk about a proposed road name for the new highway that's being constructed northeast of Roxborough, and was given some direction on a couple of specific names to pass by the appropriate bodies at NCDOT, and I've come back to report that NCDOT has approved the name of Jim Thorpe, but I understand there may be some movement in that name, and just wanted to get y'all's take on that this morning.
Was the name Veterans Memorial, was that available?
That's taken.
That is taken?
Correct.
Okay.
As far as the Jim Thorpe, we've reached out to the family to make sure that they were okay with that. And so we haven't heard anything back, and Commissioner Jeffers has some contacts with the family. So we'd like to actually table this until we get some direction from the family.
Okay.
So if it's okay with the group, we'll table this until
Next meeting.
next meeting.
Fine.
You think you got enough time to do it in
That
that?
should give us enough time, hope somebody get back.
Okay.
I can help you with that if
Okay.
you need to.
Okay.
All right. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
We'll see you next meeting. Mr. Cole, if you would come forward and enlighten us this morning, please.
I'm Larry Cole, businessman, concerned citizen, resident of Person County, and own a business and property in the city of Roxborough, which is along Madison Boulevard. I want to thank you for allowing me to be added to this on short notice. I think it's something very important that needs to be discussed, and some ideas need to be brought forward. What I'm here about is the plan to revitalize, update, and upgrade Madison Boulevard all the way from the intersection of North Main Street and Madison Boulevard and 49, what we call the four-way intersection. It goes all the way through till it gets to Weeks Drive, located where Golden Corral is. Then what I want to talk about first is the original plan that I've seen, and it was presented several years ago. I think it was approved by 1999. So, you know, the DOT, they do these things many years before they ever happen, which is good until you get down to the exactly what's going to happen. And the original plan was to start at four-way, go all the way through Madison Boulevard to Weeks Drive, with doing away with all turning lanes and putting grass medians, trees, and so forth in place of the turning lane, adding a sidewalk and a bike area on each side of the boulevard. And that sounds good, would look really great, but in my opinion, it's very impractical. It's divided up into parts now, which is an advantage. Each intersection was to be upgraded as well. But the real problem that I see is there will be no left turns onto Madison Boulevard in this original plan. Every street that came to Madison Boulevard would turn right. And you could only cross over where the intersections that have a street light. And I feel like this is a real problem, and I'll go into several of those. Number one is, they say there's about 15,000+ cars that go on Madison Boulevard per day. That's a lot of traffic. The statistics show that over a 10-year span from 2010 to 2015, there were 1,642 accidents, which were practically all fender benders. DOT doesn't take into consideration how bad the accident was or anything. But if you put that in perspective, that's about less than one accident a day. And with 15,000 cars going through or more, we wish there were no accidents, but you know, that's not too bad with that many vehicles. The other thing is safety, and residents that may want to walk up and down the boulevard. That's where the sidewalks would come in to help. Don't know that there would be that many walking on the sidewalks, but hey, if it keeps them off the road and they can walk across the intersections, provided, that would be great, and the intersection being at stoplights. But my real concern, one of the major ones, is the fact that from where Sheets is, that intersection, all the way up to Hardy's, where the next first stoplight is, if you put a no-turn lane there from one end to the other, as the original plan shows, someone coming from South Boston and wanted to go to my business located at Furniture Mart there in the shop, they would have to go all the way up to Hardy's, turn around on the U-turn and come back. there are no plans there for anyone to turn left. This just, it's not feasible. Another problem that I have, business that I own there, the America's Mattress, all of our tractor trailers have to back into the store to unload. As a matter of fact, it's one day unloading right now. We just got a truckload of mattresses in. If there's no turn lane for him to pull in to back up, then he's got to go all the way down to Sheets, make a U-turn, come back up. And every vehicle that wants to make a left turn has got to go nearly over half a mile to turn around and come back to wherever they want to go. All this in the original plan. Thankfully, there's been some discussion. I called your planning director and gave him my concerns, and he graciously actually offered to go to his office. He offered to come to mine, so he came down last Monday, and we had an hour-and-a-half discussion. And I appreciate him coming down and letting me get some insight into a business point of view. DOT only interested in getting traffic through Roxboro and safety and security, which is great. But we, as Person County folks, we need to be realistic that there are businesses there, and this was designed probably 50 years ago as a bypass, which was a great idea, but it was never planned as a bypass. A business were allowed to build all the way up and down, and they are right now, there's probably 2 lots left available for construction. And there's just no way that it can be done the way the original plan was. That's why I'm here. The real problem is DOT is only about getting traffic through Roxboro. Me as a business person, I'm interested in having that traffic stop and come to the businesses in Roxboro. I'm very concerned about Roxboro and Person County. I even mow some traffic islands that are not my property because the people that own them don't keep them up, and it makes my place look bad. I do things like I put the flags up on Memorial Day, Veterans Day. I don't have to do it. I wasn't told to do it. But I love Roxboro and Person County. I've been here all my life. I've been in business here, working on that boulevard for over 40 years. And I'm very concerned that, possibility of keeping people out of not just my business, but a lot of business is a problem. When they talk about accidents and problems with the road, there's, to me, another major problem. For example, if, say, Bojangles had a fire, and the city fire department's right there, they're going to come down to it. That's the closest fire department. Well, they would have to come all the way down to Sheets, turn around, and come back up and turn into Bojangles. That's a lot of time they would lose. And then that original plan also, if you read the fine print, it says several streets will be closed going on to Madison Boulevard. It's just, the details is something you as the county commissioners need to be aware of. We as the business community need to be aware of. And these things will cause a real problem if it's not looked at and some changes made. Fortunately, in speaking with the planning director, he agreed that some changes need to be made. And he and I have had a good conversation. I've already he met with open meetings last Saturday at the library. Very appreciative of him doing that. A number of people came to the meeting, expressed concerns, and some people came and expressed, they'd like to see something done. The first thing was, I think the mayor, she preferred that the bicycle routes be on Lamar Street. Hey, great idea. That's what these meetings are for. And we need to have some more, and need to invite the business community to the meetings if it's possible to do. I know they are in a hurry to get this done and get it into DOT to get the money. It's about $30 million being allocated for all of these. About 5 intersections are included, and the rest of it is to put the trees and shrubbery in the middle of the road. After my conversation with the planning director, I showed him where, in my instance, the trucks not being able to back into a side road was impossible. And he stated, well, you know, maybe we could put concrete, raised 6-inch concrete, the length of whatever you need to a truck to pull up on the concrete and then back off. I would prefer that over nothing. But the tractor trailers probably wouldn't like to have to pull up on concrete and raised area, because it's not going to save for the trucks to back up. It's just going to be concrete. But that would be better than nothing. I appreciate him bringing that up to it. But the other thing is, I'm not the only one that has trucks to back in. There are several others that have to. And going from stoplight to stoplight before you can make a left turn is not feasible. And those that got businesses, and we get a lot of business. I get a lot of business out of South Boston. And those folks are not going to drive a half a mile to have to turn around and come back to go in my business. And people come from the south end of town. If they wanted to go to a business, McDonald's, there's no turn lane. You have to go all the way down to Sheets, make a U-turn, come back up and go in McDonald's, Wendy's, Bojack, any of those places. To me, that's going to block up your right lane. So you're going to have one lane, and then if an emergency vehicle comes, the right lane's blocked, the traffic in the left lane, they're going to be very, very slow getting through Madison Boulevard. It's a real concern. And after discussion Saturday, I think the planning director sees some things that can be changed. But I also brought up a possibility that I have seen work. I have a store in South Boston, Virginia at Centerville. They had these same concerns when they redid the road there. What they did was, where there were residential areas, they put the trees and all, but they had some turning lanes also, crossover lanes, not turning lanes, but crossover lanes. Worked out very well. And then when they got up to where the business section was, they put a dual turning lane. They had 2 lanes going this way, 2 lanes coming back, a turn lane to left and a turn lane to left from the other side. It works perfect. It's right in front of my business there. And I think the majority of Madison Boulevard needs to have the dual turning lane. It eliminates, it does what the DOT wants to happen, wants traffic flow to go through. It also helps us by having a turn lane that you can go to any business that you want to without having to go to the next intersection where there's a stoplight, make a U-turn and come back. Very important, very important. And planning director brought up the fact there's a place, I think it was called Cornelius, I might not get the name right. It's down near Charlotte, about possibly going down now. 15 years ago, they did the trees and so forth. But at that time, they were a small town like Roxborough. But now they got 60,000 people there. So I don't know that that's going to be comparative to look at when you're looking at 60,000 people compared to what we have in the city of Roxborough, what, maybe 12,000 people. I would prefer that they go and look at South Boston. And it's a whole lot shorter, a whole lot easier to get to. And when I brought this up, I was told, you know, take some pictures of it and bring them to it. I will be glad to do that and appreciate the planning director allow me to do that. But this is a very important issue to all of Person County, not just me as a businessman, but to every business. The boulevard was designed as a bypass, but it's never been a bypass. It's been a business district. And the fact that, you know, when it was originally put as a bypass, if it was designed and you had ordinances and all saying you can have a driveway here, you can't have one here, maybe it could have worked out to be a beautiful grass median in the middle. But today, that was not done. It is continuously businesses all the way through. And there are about 3 sections that I personally think you could put your trees and shrubs and no turn. Right there where the county jail is. That section there's no business going to build on the right side, and the new one can build on the left side. You could put a median there with trees and shrubs, and I think it would look nice. And maybe 1 or 2 other places. But that main thoroughfare from Sheets to Moorhead is, I don't know how you can do it without disrupting. And also when it's done, several side streets, such as possibly Oak Street, Abbey Street, some of those streets are going to be dead end. And you're going to have to turn right. And 2 or 3 of those streets, if you read the fine print, several of those streets are going to be blocked off, and you're not going to be able to come on to Madison Boulevard. It's the old saying, I guess the devil is in the details. And I'm here to ask you to take a serious look at it. Have your planning department, which planning department director has offered to listen to anything that anybody has to say about it. I appreciate that. He's been very good about it. But I just felt like you need to hear it from a business perspective, because what the Courier Times has written, none of the details are put in there. I met with the city council last Monday night, because I only met with the planning director on Tuesday night. Met with him on Monday, because when I found out what was happening, I asked them for their guidance as well, because it affects Main Street too. And the Courier, of course, didn't put any of my comments into the paper the next week. They only put the comments from the planning director. So I feel very, this is very important. And I know you all are concerned about Person County. You wouldn't have spent all the time that you have to spend here as county commissioners. I would like for you to ask any questions that you can. I sit down and I'm going to write something, but I can talk better than I can write, as most people will attain. But when you put in the thing about the emergency service, I mean, you look at health services department there. If there was an emergency there, when someone has to come down and go make a U-turn to come in, it's very uncomfortable for the emergency services as well as the businesses. And we need the upgrade. I'm all for the sidewalk. We can have sidewalks up and down, that's great. The bike lane, I would be kind of like Mayor Newell, that the bike lane would be better on Lamar Street, but even if some, and I did talk to Plan Direct, he said there is room to do the dual turn lanes and still have the sidewalk. So it's not a question of whether there's enough room or not. Do you have any questions that I might can answer?
Anybody got anything?
I'll comment. I think what you said about, Mike knows lots of those engineers because he worked with that Carter Regional Council of Governments.
Correct.
And that was one of the things he worked in before. And probably one of the few projects that's been given that wasn't in Raleigh and Durham area, which tells you something about somebody knowing how to handle it, the way they do it with the point system. I think some of the issues that you're talking about, he can go back to those engineers and talk to them, and I think he told you he was willing to do that and see where it's at. Like you said, it's a plan that's being presented at this point in time, and I think it's something that can be worked. I realize, and you realize as well as I realize, that if they don't spend that money in Person County, it's probably going to Raleigh or Durham one. And not that I want it to be done right too, as well as you do.
That's why I'm here.
But I think if he takes that back and looks at it and gets your all's input with it, I think we're where we need to be with it at this point. Since he had the meeting at the library, was for people to put input into it. So I feel like it's headed in the right direction. I appreciate you coming and voicing your concerns about it now instead of later.
Yes, sir.
Because
Well,
a lot of times that's what happens to us up here. We get the concerns later.
after it's happened.
Right.
Yeah.
So you did the right thing by coming, and you did the right thing by talking with Mike, because he's probably more knowledgeable with how this system works, which, in my opinion, was probably set up to favor the urban areas. They've got the votes now. Well, 80% of the legislators are from urban areas, so they've got the control. But for us to get something that maybe we can get worked out and work with, I think is a good thing. And I'm glad you brought that back, and I think he'll take that back to the engineers and see what we can do with it.
I thought, I was there at the meeting on Saturday, and I thought there was a very good open dialogue. Mike has done a good job of being open. I know he's gone to different clubs and organizations, and they're going to continue to have, when new information comes out, he's going to continue to have seek input from our business owners. I believe him and the chamber are working on a plan as well to make sure that everybody is informed as to what's going on. I think there's a way that everybody can be happy, and I appreciate you coming up as a business owner. And I think there may be some people even today that are unaware of what's going on, and I appreciate you coming voicing your concern about it, because if we didn't know, we would think everything's all hunky-dory
Absolutely.
on that. But I think there's first off, it's not funded yet, so we don't know if it is going to be funded. So once if it is funded, I think Mike that would put us in a good place to go ahead and have a blueprint of what we need to tell DOT well before the bulldozers come in on it. And I think this board is definitely going to listen to the voice of the business community and do our utmost to appease everyone in that process.
Mike, could you come forward and answer a couple of questions? Don't leave, Larry.
Awesome. Give him the floor.
One of the questions that I've got is exactly where do the commissioners fit in this decision?
It's a good question. I think.
I mean, it's not something that we can. There's
You
not-
had every question answered but that one, right?
I should have known. I'm usually with David. I'm trying to think 5 steps ahead, and I didn't. I think the short answer is that the bulk of your role was already done back in 2011 when the plan was created. That's when the commissioners voted on approving it. So there are not a lot of details at all for this project. I'm going by conjecture. I'm basically looking at when the comprehensive transportation plan is completed, and that was completed and approved by this board and the city council and the state and the General Assembly in 2011, all they offer are the findings of fact, which are there's this severity. They do actually look at severity of accidents. They look at severity of accidents, they look at congestion, they look at the road's capacity to handle traffic, so it's based on fact. And then based on those criteria, they come up with a recommended design. All they give you in a recommended design, though, is what's called a cross-section, which is an example of what it would look like if you took a snapshot of one slice of it. And that's how we know that their recommendation is this divided with a facility with a divided median that's intended for commercial context. So.
All right, but all of their findings are based strictly on traffic.
Traffic and crashes and the ability of the existing facility to handle more traffic.
But no questions are asked basically as to the effect of business or.
That's exactly right. And that's why I'm doing this. Because normally what would happen would be if the road were funded, there would be a period for an engineering study to come in. Now, I've been talking about this project for 5 years. So it's taken 5 years for people and I haven't hidden the project. I've brought it up at every opportunity I could. And I've been inviting people by email to come listen and talk to me. My door's open. So every opportunity for people to talk to me, it's taken them 5 years to finally wake up, if you will. And if I hadn't done that, DOT would have dropped in here and said, here's our plan. Here's where the road closings are going to go. And when it's a road closing, what that means is it doesn't go all the way through. It doesn't mean it dead ends. It just means you can't make a full movement across the road. I didn't want that to happen. I also understood that by doing this redesign of Madison Boulevard, that there are, in addition to the constraints, there were also opportunities. So there was a little bit of both, and I wanted the public to be as aware of both the constraints and the opportunities as they could, as far in advance as they could. At the time when I started this, I didn't expect it to be funded for 20 or 30 years, but it may be sooner than that. And I have to emphasize maybe. It might not be. It might be 20 or 30 years. But the point I tried to make on Saturday was what pieces of this, even if we don't get funding, there's still a conversation that needs to be had about the boulevard. And that, in that sense, that is your role. So that as the conversation continues, there may be opportunities for smaller pots of money to fix, say, an intersection like we did with the CMAQ funding. There may be other grants that become available for, say, burying power lines, or putting in sidewalks in different sections. It's more of a city thing, but there's probably some room in there for y'all to be invested in it as well. So there's smaller opportunities to be involved in this along the road. But as far as the big decision about whether or not it's a 4-lane divided with medians and then intersections are limited to specific intersections. Right now, what I think is going to happen is that it will be a median divided. There's only 1% available, by the way, for landscaping, so there won't be a lot of landscaping unless it's this public contribution. But the intersections where there are stop signals right now will be full movement. Those won't go away likely. And then there's probably room to add some. But again, this is all hearsay, and I like Jimmy's recommendation, and I think that's what I'll do next is take some of the ideas that Alicia Puryear said it would be helpful for her if I drew out in a map and showed where these things are, and then go to DOT's engineer and say, does this seem practical to you? I mean, do these kinds of closings, just because they have a specific spacing that's needed between intersections to increase safety and increase capacity, which are two of their objectives. We have to be concerned about Madison Boulevard. We may not like it, their recommendation, but we have to be concerned because there's no money for a bypass. So that road is our main lifeblood for commercial industry access to the county, and if the quality of movement along that diminishes anymore, we're going to be in trouble, because obviously getting funding takes a long time to fix something, and it takes especially a long time in places that are rural, that don't have a lot of population. So it's a big deal, and it's a big deal to know as much as possible, as soon as possible, and work with DOT as soon as possible to make sure that any changes that we need or any recommendations that we have can be considered by them sooner rather than later.
Mr. Cole, you had something you wanted to make reference to?
The fact that, we have had a number of conversations, and they've been very good, very cordial, and I appreciate that. But still, the fact is that I think that looking at the two turning lanes, it's room for it. You still got your sidewalk. It's very viable, especially in that stretch. It needs to be seriously taken looking at. And he talked about the fact that he's drawing up his paper for Alicia. That's great. And he's met with different groups. But the one thing that has not been done, you as county, you had the address of every business on Madison Boulevard in the whole stretch, and the owners. Shouldn't a letter be sent out to them and let them know what's going on? Meeting with the Kiwanis and different places, that's great. But no one has met with the business owners as an individual group. And I'm sure I could get a group of business owners together to meet on this. And he always opens his door to it, but it hasn't happened in the last 5 years.
Well, that gets back to my question, who do you need to go see, him or us? And my question primarily right now is, we as a board can't dictate anything really on that boulevard. It's a U.S. highway. Now, we can make suggestions and make phone calls and try to politic our way best we can, but...
That's what I'm asking for.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And also, you do have, no one wants to hear this, and I don't want to see it happen, but you can say yes or no to the plan if it doesn't work out for the benefit of Person County.
I'm not sure about that.
I don't know. It's never happened before, so I don't know what the answer is. I'm assuming that you probably could.
I mean, it's not a good idea.
I don't
and-
think-
but-
I don't think you can do.
Well, I mean,
Okay,
I don't
well,
know that we need to
we
get
don't
in
need
a
to
battle
get
with
into
them.
that
We
no
just
way,
need to.
But I'm just so concerned about the fact of how much business. I mean, when you lose business, you lose income. Because the businesses, if they can't survive, you're not gonna get the sales tax. You're
I
not gonna get
understand that. That's the reason that I made the statement I did, that the surveys that the DOT does very seldom takes into consideration any economic,
They're looking at this as a
consequences.
bypass.
well,
We're
I
looking
mean,
at
that's
it-
their job.
Yeah.
They're looking to, and
Yeah.
in their defense, you know, that is the main thoroughfare that's
Right.
going through Person County. Now, the fact that businesses have gotten in the way, is something we gotta work through.
Right.
And
I
so,
think
you know, that's.
we can work together and, you know, come up with it. And I'm willing to go to anywhere, any meeting that he wants to have. And I'm sure I can have others to attend too. Because right now, the only people, I mean, that are meeting is like the chamber and the, uptown, because it's gonna affect traffic going uptown as well.
Mhm.
So,
Well,
I just
now-
think the merchants need to be just as informed and get the same information.
Would, well, then what I would suggest is you get your group together and get with Mike.
Sure.
And we are already working with the state engineer on some other projects in the county which are road related.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I think one's gonna affect the other. And, you know, if you go create a bottleneck here and then expand the need back here later on, I think all this can be coordinated in a doable manner. But it would certainly help that he's got your input from an economic standpoint, because that's what I think we're trying to address now. But as chairman, I'll do anything I can to help sway what I can. But, you know, at the end of the day, the DOT's got a job to do, and it's just a matter of how we can situate it so that it fits all. But I think going forward that there's a good chance that there is not a one fix all, but you know, what affects your part of the boulevard may not affect the other end.
That's correct.
And so, you know, y'all need to come up with a game plan, in my opinion, and then we'll help any way we can.
I'm offering my time. I've spent a lot of time in the last week on this.
Well,
And,
I think
some sleepless
from
nights
a,
as well, because sometimes I guess that's when you come
I
up with
think from a
best ideas.
productive standpoint, as far as getting something done and knowing how to get it done, the man next to you right there probably knows more than anybody in this room.
I agree with that 100%,
So,
because
you
he's
know,
been in it for many years.
For you to come solicit us and then we have to go to him, that's a bottleneck we don't even need to start. So I think as a county, we probably need to work through Mike, whether it's us or you. And so we only have one mouthpiece, but we need to come up with one game plan. So if you could get your group together with him and get the ball started, because, you know, we're probably still looking 5 or 6 years before they fund anything.
Well, the
But
5
we may be
major-
surprised. I mean, we weren't
Yeah.
looking for all that asphalt we got on the boulevard this year, so, you know, when the roads wear out, they wear out, but,
well, these, the top
hopefully
5 are ended.
hopefully our other project will have some influence on this, and, my goal is to try to make something happen on that this year, so, now's good timing, I think, for trying to put the two together.
Yeah. I said 150 bypass, that's gonna be, you know, something you have to consider
We
too.
won't see it.
Well, I don't think I'll ever see
I don't
it.
think they'll come up with enough drugs to keep
I
us
don't
around
think
that long.
so. All right. Look,
All right.
thank you very much for listening to me.
Feel
That's
free to
all I
come
can
back
do.
in.
Ask you to do is listen to me. And I want to thank Mike. He and I have had some conversations, and he's had his door open ever since it started. This has only gone on for a week, and I feel like we've gotten a lot done in a week's time, and we can get more done. And I just want to bring the concerns from my perspective. He's got his concerns from his perspective of what he has to look at, and together, I hope we can make Roxbury and Person County better. Okay?
Well, now, I would like to have a request here that y'all maybe come back in 3 months and give us an update.
We probably have to come back sooner than that, because you gotta have all this done before September, correct?
I'd like to have it done sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
There's no hard and try, there's no deadline necessarily.
okay.
My internal deadline is September
Well,
to get
you
to
know,
that,
I just want us to stay involved so that
Yeah.
if
absolutely.
if you need us to make some phone calls that would do some good,
Sounds great.
that's the way I
Sounds
think we're
great.
gonna achieve something, so we
Well,
look forward to hearing
Keep
from
you
you.
updated.
All right?
Thank you. Thank you
you.
very much. I do appreciate you taking the time.
All right, Heidi, you'll
Talk about the benefits.
get Mr. Allen up here and
All right.
see what we can discuss this morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. As you know, this is our second year as a self-funded health insurance program for the county. And we've been looking at our renewal and wanted to bring the opportunity to the board to also review the options related to county employee health insurance. So I have Brian Bickley here from Scott Benefit Services out of Raleigh, and then of course Philip Allen, our local broker here as well. There's a new option on the table that we want to talk a little bit about today, and that is what we're calling a two-tiered option, which would offer a richer or higher benefit plan to employees with a contribution from them, if that's something that y'all are interested in pursuing. Right now, we have about 407 subscribers to the county health plan, and the renewal rate is coming in at about 13.1% higher than our current year. So that gives you a cost estimate next year of approximately $3 million, or about $600 per employee per month. And you'll see those figures on our spreadsheets that Brian will acquaint you with. So without further ado, Brian, thank you for being
Thank
here
you,
this
Lonnie.
morning.
Happy to, thank you. Yeah, just really quickly, I wanted to kind of big picture first and sort of highlight kind of why we got here in the first place. As you guys know, and Heidi mentioned, 7/1/15 was the first year that you self-funded your plan. And when Heidi talks about the $3 million, keep in mind that about 15% of that is fixed cost, and that means, and that's cost to administer the plan and some reinsurance. But then that means 85% of your plan is variable cost, and that's claims. And so what we want to do over the next really 3 years is to try to manage that claims cost more aggressively. So we're going to be accruing for claims. If they don't happen, you don't pay for them, right? So if you turn to the first slide, just really quickly, the plan here, and I think everybody's vision, I don't want to put words in Heidi's mouth, but is to continue to offer a superior benefits package. You do. I'm going to show you some benchmarking here in just a minute. But in our view, a couple things you need to do to continue that is, one, to work to solidify health as a core cultural value, and to create an environment of accountability for personal health. And that's the path that we're trying to take here. So as Heidi mentioned, we think one of our recommendations for 7/1/15, among a few others, is that you offer 2 medical plans and allow the employee to make an election between the 2. Just a couple points about what's happened over the past year. If you look at the claims data for this current plan year, 55% of your members spent less than $1,000 per year. So a member is an employee plus spouse and dependents on the plan. We're looking at everybody, all the belly buttons on the plan. 73% of those members spent less than $2,000. About 27% of your members spent 86% of your total claims, okay? So a real small number incurring a large amount of your claims. But a lot of people, about 75% of people really aren't spending that much money for their own health care. So we have basically said that a less valuable plan than what you offer is appropriate for many members. We're going to help them figure that out and make that decision, but we think that's appropriate. But keep in mind, if we offer 2 plans, there has to be some sort of financial incentive for a person to take a less rich plan, right? So we'll talk about that and we'll model that out for you. Look at the third slide. The other thing that we think is that if you are going to ask people to be more accountable, you've got to give them information and some tools to make better decisions. I won't go through all this, but very quickly, Health Plan Assist is an actuarial-based decision support tool. So if you do decide to go with a two-plan, dual-plan option, this will be a link that every employee will get and help them sort of make their own family decision on what their out-of-pocket costs would look like under each plan. Okay? A mobile app will help people with the key thing here is a cost estimator. So we want to be able to allow people and give them the tools to be able to say, look, if I need to go get an MRI, where's the best value for that dollar? Because I've got more skin in the game in this high deductible plan we're going to look at. Payment Estimator it allows you to compare costs on common medical procedures, and then Teladoc is basically a virtual telemedicine app that would like to add in. Look at the next slide. It just shows the two plan designs kind of laid out side by side. Wish I had this electronically for you. But if you look at the high option and a low option, which is what we're looking at for 7-1 to 16, the high option is the current plan. So the plan is to continue to offer that plan, no plan design changes, but alongside that, offer what we call a low option. And just the benefits are about 11% less rich. Okay, we'll show that actuarial value in the modeling in a minute. But I've just tried to highlight in yellow the differences in the plan design: higher deductible, higher out-of-pocket maximum, and then a less rich pharmacy plan. So that's how we get the 11% decrement between the two plan designs. Make sense so far? Next slide is just a projection of or suggested renewal funding for this coming plan year. So you can see at the current funding, it's about $2.9 million. This is at the expected level. So remember, we've got reinsurance here that capture maximum. So you look at the suggested renewal funding in the second column, you go from $2.9 million to $3.182. That's about an 8.1% increase. We underfunded a little bit this year, so we want to build a 5% margin in there to help bump up those reserves a little bit. I'll show you that in just a minute. And then your maximum cost is also illustrated on this document where it shows the $3.7 million. The next slide is what we call contribution analysis and modeling. So this slide actually just shows you continuing to offer the same plan that you currently offer, right? So we've got enrollment of 407 employees. That doesn't change from the next year. You can see in the middle, in the light blue box, our recommended increase in funding is 13.1%. That's your estimated 8.1 plus a 5% margin to help build up those reserves. And then you can see the 13.1 just trickles down to the monthly funding rates, which that's the total funding or accrual level. The employee contribution goes up by 13.1, and the county's contribution goes up by 13.1. Okay, it's just straight across the board, 13.1. The next slide is actually modeling out what we think it might look like when you offer two plans. So we've made some assumptions here, and I'll explain those. So you see the current state is the one plan offered with the employee paying $0 for employee-only coverage. You can see the renewal funding increase is 13.1%. The decrement in the new option is 0.89. That simply means that the low option plan is 11% less rich than the current plan offered. That's just the decrement. And then the assumption, the big assumption here is that, and I think it's a very conservative assumption, is that we've assumed that only 10% of employees will move from one plan to the low option plan. Okay. So you can see how the enrollment kind of trickles down there, migrates from the high plan to the low plan. Only 10% migrate down. You still have 407 enrolled, but 10% are now on this low option plan, which if you look in the light blue over to the right, still they pay nothing for on employee only. But we've asked on if employees would like to continue on the high plan, we've asked that they contribute $25 per month towards the funding of the plan. So you look down at the bottom, the monthly funding rates move from 13.1 down to 11.8. The employee's contribution increases significantly. The county's contribution is a 7.7% increase. So we've taken from 13.1 down to 7.7.
And none of this is determined until you have your enrollment.
Yes, sir, that's exactly right. So we think that this is a relatively conservative estimate to get only 10% of people to move to the low plan. So obviously a better outcome. For every 10% employees move over, you get an 11% savings. So another way to say that, for every person that moves from the high plan to the low plan, actuarially, you save about 11%.
All right, but in your first description there, a lot of the people would come out ahead if they paid for the higher plan. They'd have higher benefits and it'd still
They'd
break that down a little bit.
They'd have higher benefits, but they wouldn't use them.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Mhm.
Better benefits, but if you don't use it, there's not that much value in it.
So the $25 a month plan, is that considered the high option plan here?
Yeah.
That is the high option. I'm sorry, that's the low option.
This is the low option.
Mhm.
No,
Oh,
I
I'm
think
sorry,
you've
I'm
got
sorry,
this
Ray, I'm sorry,
backwards.
I've got it backwards, I'm sorry.
All right, the high option. All right. So the low option is what they have now.
Correct.
No.
No, that's not right. The low
No.
option is 11% lesser of value. So the high option is what we offer now. There'd be no change except that the employees would contribute the $25.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
The low option would be if the employee prefers to not contribute anything out of pocket, on a monthly basis, and they would have a less rich benefit
So the
plan.
difference is the deductible and the out-of-pocket maximum.
And the pharmacy, correct. Those three items highlighted in yellow.
And the pharmacy is something new. We hadn't talked about that as being a difference when you and I initially designed this. I thought that was staying the same, but
No, we
it's no
did.
longer.
That was something back, if you recall, a lot of our utilization has come in pharmacy and
That's
grown
right.
in pharmacy. And that's not just Person County's plan, that's everybody's plan. The specialty pharmacy is the thing that's really growing the fastest in healthcare today.
So is that the impact of the pharmacy rider plan that we talked about?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
With either one of these two options, do we, as a county, offer through our health care a medical spending account or a medical health care account?
You do not.
We have the flex benefit plan, is that what it's called, Angie? Medical savings, or basically flex spending
Flexible
plan.
spending.
I'm sorry, flex spending plan, where you can have pre-tax dollars set aside to use towards expenses.
But
medical
that's, if
expenses.
you don't use it, you lose it.
Yes.
We don't have the
We don't have the
medical,
health
we don't
savings
have the
account.
medical health savings account.
We don't.
So to do that, Tracy, just to kind of take that a little bit further, you have to have a qualified health plan to offer a health savings account. And it basically, we can show you plan designs that do that, but it essentially, the IRS rules say that nothing can be covered at 100% on that plan. Everything accumulates towards the deductible except for preventive care.
Okay.
So if you take that, either one of your two plans, really, I guess if you take the new plan, and if you stripped all the office visit copays away, that would be a health savings account qualified plan.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
It does.
So you get a little bit more savings too.
So since we're self-funded and we're building reserves and have a 5% built in, how much are we talking about saving if half their employees switch to $25 a month plan?
If half switch over,
Did we see an actual savings, or are we just building reserve?
you see, if people use the plan, you see an actual savings. that make sense?
We will see an actual savings, but in terms of budgeting, which is different than,
Right.
than what Brian's talking about, in terms of budgeting, we're gonna budget the same amount. So what we will
Build that
see
reserve.
is an increase in your reserve next year, although you could call it a savings based, once we see the enrollment,
Right.
based on what we budgeted versus what you're gonna have as actual. But for budgeting purposes, the number does not change this year,
So this new option, or the low option, annual cost 2.8 million, that's a 7.6% increase. So when you go out to renew or bid, obviously, you just look at what we have now. So would the option be to scrap what you have now and go to the low option altogether and no cost? Would you not see a savings then?
The county would.
We would see a savings
Yeah,
then.
absolutely.
All right, now, one thing you need to keep in mind is you don't build a reserve unless you don't spend it.
Right.
So that maximum out of pocket pertains to the budget for the county as well as the individuals. Now, if we spend that maximum out of pocket, we don't save a dime, I mean, we don't accumulate anything.
That's right.
Which is what happened this year, essentially.
We spend as much as we,
Put in reserve.
yeah.
So let's say an officer got hurt while working on duty, and he chose this low option plan. I mean,
It wouldn't affect him
What
because
comes
it's,
in?
it's
It's on
covered
duty.
under
Because he's on
workman's
duty.
comp,
Okay.
because he's on
That's-
duty. I look at this, I'll give Tracy's perspective and then I'll be quiet because I talk a lot up here. We're given options and you can pick one option or you can leave it as is. So if you leave it as is, you pay $25 a month, which according to what I pay at Duke Energy is a real steal. But if you decide to move to the other option, you don't have to pay anything per month. You just have a little bit higher deductible and a little bit more out-of-pocket spending. So we're giving our employees an option so that we can help the taxpayers of Person County see some benefit from providing the health care for them. So $25 a month times 12 is $400 a year. So
300, yeah.
$300 a year. See, I didn't go to college.
There's some benchmarking on the page behind the modeling as well. And this, I'm sorry, this is not for county governments, but it's for commercial enterprises. So we do a national survey every year. This is the North Carolina survey. The median employer is about 165 people. So not a large, we're not comparing to, Person County to Duke Energy. But it'll give you a sense of what people coming into the county that are coming from a commercial environment. The median employee pays about $108 for employee-only coverage, just to give you a sense of things. Median deductible is $1,500. The county's is $1,000. The median out-of-pocket is $4,000. The county's is $3,000. So you have a relatively rich plan. And just to Tracy's.
If I looked at those employees who don't have, I imagine this has private sector.
It is all private sector,
So
yes.
if I looked at the benchmarks to a private sector salary compared to a public salary, I'm sure there's a big discrepancy in
Could be.
which is rich and which isn't.
Sure.
On that, and the only concern I have is if we don't see a immediate budgetary type difference, we're still going to budget the same amount, we're still going to build up reserves. That's a benefit that I think we offer our employees because we know just in the past we have not been a county that has kept up very well with our pay scale compared to other counties. Now this year we are going ahead and starting the MAP study and take care of public safety for the first phase. But how long did it take for us to get to this point that we were behind, for several years? And so if I'm an employee and I'm looking at what Durham or Granville or Orange or South Boston or Danville, and since we're a border county, and for the type of money you're making here in Person County, I think that's a benefit
Right.
that keeps them here, or at least it comes up in their mind if they're thinking about leaving. And I think our interest is always to keep our well-qualified employees who provide service to our citizens at the utmost level. And so, I mean, unless we saw like just a big immediate savings, and it was 2008, 2009 in the recession, I'm not in favor of right now even providing that option.
I think you do have to look at it as a total compensation package, right? It's benefits and salary, obviously. I will tell you that younger people, that, you know, if you recruit younger people to the county, they're used to these high deductible plans, and that's what they have always known, so.
To reiterate on your part there though, Ray, one thing that needs to be reminded, I suppose, is the best way to put it. From last year to this year, if you didn't change anything and you didn't offer that plan or option, and you paid for everything like we're just doing right now, that equates to about a $1,200 a year raise in and of itself. So, you know, it's
That's a great point.
it is additional compensation, albeit they don't get to put it in their pocket, but it is a benefit that they certainly get to use.
And that's one I think that we should keep, because we don't put a lot in their pocket here. You know, we went through several years of not being on a comparable pay scale to other counties for people who are doing the same work. And so I think that's one plus in Person County, that we have provided that benefit to accumulate. I mean, you can, like you said, they don't put it in their pocket, but it's something that they definitely can think about.
Well, it's something they've been getting every year, because it's definitely been going up.
Yeah, it's a good point.
One of the things I'd like to bring up is that we don't see a whole lot of difference right now, but if we don't build a reserve up in the years to come, if we exhaust all of the reserve in it, then there could be a possibility moving forward that we have to raise taxes just to pay for health care insurance within Person County. And it's just like being on the economic development group. If you don't do anything for economic development in Person County, then you're probably not going to reap the rewards of economic development. So sitting back and not doing anything to help build your reserve up is probably going to run us down the same avenue as not doing any economic development. We're going to have to be reactive to the cost of health care going up rather than proactive. And it may be that in the future, rather than $25 per employee, if we're reactive to the market rather than proactive, then we have to go to $50 or $100 per employee. So I look at it as insurance on top of insurance, of saying you don't have to pay anything out of your pocket. You can leave things just as they are, and it doesn't cost you anything else per month. Or you can pay $25 or $300 a year, which somebody helped me with earlier, and you can get the added benefits for it. So we're allowing them to make a choice.
Just, and one other point, right, just to reiterate, I think it's important to help people make the right decision, right? If you do go this direction, and that's why we're providing this actuarial model where each individual can go in, punch some information. I know healthcare is unpredictable, but if you use healthcare the way you normally use healthcare, this will let you know kind of out of pocket for both plans which one is the best fit for your family. So I do think to help people make a decision, if you do offer choice, you gotta offer them tools to help make the right decision.
What are we doing to assist our employees to get healthier? I mean, doesn't Granville County have, I hate to use the word mandatory, but don't they require some things of their employees as far as certain screenings and testings and things like that? I mean, at one time, I know when the county was faced with this, I was an employee, and they had a very active wellness committee that actually had a budget to do some things. And I don't think they've been really well funded over the past few years to do anything for the employees at the rate that they did back then, when they was offering different classes and different educational opportunities for the employees to get involved. I remember we offered a 30-minute 30 minutes 3 times a week or 2 times a week or something that did not go against their lunch hour to be active, to go walk the track, to do something. I mean, what are we doing on our end other than just saying, you can take this lower pay and pay more?
So we do still have a very active wellness committee. We do offer twice a week employees get an additional 45 minutes to go engage in exercise-related activities, whether that's walking the track or visiting the county gym, which we also now offer to employees that we didn't have in the past. So
Do we fund the wellness committee?
we do. We have $500
$500.
a year, and that's part of the governing body budget. So you'll see that, when we start talking about budget. We also offered the health risk assessment screenings this year down in the auditorium. That was just a couple of weeks ago, where employees were able to get their blood pressure checked, have a blood panel run. We also have, various activities planned throughout the year, different educational sessions, some
Do we still have the deal
aerobic-
with the local gyms to where employees could go, I think Percy County schools and Percy County employees could go at a lower rate?
We don't have that anymore. We offered the county gym alternative instead, which is something like $20 a year it costs employees to go to the county
But it's
gym.
nowhere near the equipment that you would have at a fitness center.
Right.
I mean, a regular fitness center.
Right.
I think back in the day, a Percy County employee or a school employee could join the gym for $25 a month.
Do we still have any of
And,
those available?
and so
No.
I don't know if that's still the case or not. And
It's
if
no
it is,
longer
I don't
the
even know how many
case.
employees know that.
Yeah, it's
And,
no longer the
so-
case.
And I don't think that was subsidized either. That was just an agreement between the gym owners. And I actually met with some of the gym owners to discuss reduced rates for county employees. And we couldn't get anybody to jump on board on those.
There wasn't a lack of trying on the wellness committee's part.
No, I'm not blaming the wellness committee. I think the wellness committee could do more if they were funded more.
Sure.
$500, I mean, they might get 2 instructors to do 2 somethings
Sure.
in the year. What I'm saying is, I think they had better results when they were actually funded a little more by this
Sure.
board.
Which makes
more
sense.
than $500.
Yeah.
And that's, I wasn't throwing off on the wellness committee because I served on the wellness committee as an employee, and when I was here, so when we saw those results, but they were funded. They could actually bring in instructors and have classes, and they worked with John, with Mitch, and scheduling over at Parks and Rec to have rooms and stuff to do things for employees. And I'm just saying, I mean, we've got some skin in this game too. I mean, they
got
provide
a lot of
service
skin
to our
in this
citizens,
game.
so.
Sure.
I mean,
As we go through the budget process, you need to keep that thought in mind, because
Mhm.
anything that we can do to make our people healthier means we don't pay out as much.
Right.
That's
And
right.
we, for lack of any other description, we are in the insurance business now. We've got catastrophic coverage to backstop us, but the rest of it is ours to fund, but also to, in order to be able to go forward in future years and maintain this high-rich program, we are gonna have to create a reserve. Otherwise, we're gonna be looking like the city, and we're gonna have to start grasping for straws. We're in pretty good shape. The city's desperate. I mean, but that's not part of this discussion. All I'm getting at is, anything that we can do to help our employees be healthier, helps not only us, but it helps them also to be able to have the same program going forward. So the payout gets to be too much, like Tracy said, then we got to drop back and punt and see what we can afford if it gets bad enough. I think the city's experience rate's been somewhere in the 120 to 130% range, so, last year, I think we had a 84% payout. So, well, not last year, but the year before. Last year, we probably had about 100% payout, because I don't think we accumulated much reserve. Of course, now our reserve accumulates on a couple of ways. One is, we don't pay it out, but it's all still based on what we funded with. In other words, if our premium, if we funded it at our catastrophic cost, which is around $3 million, according to their numbers, and their numbers are fairly accurate, then we're gonna spend $3 million. All right, if we fund it over and above that, if we've got some, anyway, my point being is we need to create a reserve for the security of the program, primarily for the employee. Because if we don't do it right, we're gonna screw it up for everybody. So, I think the more we can be responsible, but your wellness program is well taken, and I think it's very important going forward.
It's even more important now, right, because you're self-funded. So if you have healthy, productive employees, it's great for the county. If you have healthy employees, lower claims costs. Fully insured world, that just goes more money to the insurance company, right? So self-funded, that's the county's money. That's exactly right.
Let's go back to sheet number 3 in the program. Here's where I think we could look at this. 27% of our members spent 86% of the total plan.
Mm-hmm.
So if I were in that 27%, knowing that I had spent 86% of the plan, I would opt for the $25 per month, because I know that benefit's going to come back to me, because I'm going to be going to the doctor and spending it. But if I were in the 73% of members spent less than $2,000, then I would opt for the free.
Well, you know,
So
you're self-insuring the difference in the deductible.
That's right.
What you're doing. And so,
And I have to do that on my personal plan. I have to look at it. I have catastrophic. I have $10,000 out of pocket, and I've met it for the last 3 years. But I pay less per month.
you need a wellness program.
I need to get my kids off my insurance. So, but you know, I knew that I was given a decision whether I wanted to pay more per month or take my chances out of pocket, and I took that chance, and all 3 years I've met my deductible. So, but I have a HSA too that I contribute to, and if I don't use it when I'm 70 years old, if I want to take it out, I can take it out tax-free. So that's the reason I was asking about the HSA. It's one of those things that is really nice to have if we offered it, and would like to see people utilize it.
All right, we don't have to take any action on this. do we?
I do need you all to make a decision on whether or not we're gonna go with this 2-tiered plan or just a one comprehensive plan. Open enrollment is scheduled for you all and county employees the 25th and 26th of May. And so we would need to roll out this calculator tool that Brian has made available to employees to help them have some time to make an informed decision about what would be best for them and their family. So that's why we put this on the agenda today, is so that you could weigh in on this choice so that we can get things moving forward for open enrollment.
All right, do we have a motion of any type?
Make a motion to approve the 2-tier plan.
Any discussion on it? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Chair votes aye. 3-2. All righty. Captain Crabtree, Sheriff Jones. Y'all got 2 items to discuss. I appreciate you leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, sir. It was my pleasure.
You can come back every time and do it if you'd like.
If that's what y'all and the sheriff want me to do, that is what I'm here to serve.
Good answer, good answer.
Do a save in
Good answer.
Here in front of y'all on 2 items this morning. The first item is permission to put some money in line items for a grant that y'all already approved us writing for our body cams. We got the grant, now it's time to have it implemented, and we need to spend the funds. We have to have the cameras up and going by June 30th, or we lose the money. The original request that was for $50,000. That is a 2/3 we fund, 1/3 they fund one. Our total figure actually came up to be $48,959, so it was a little bit under that. Our match part will be paid out of our drug tax funds. So we, like I said, we just here to where we can get finance to put the money in the right line item, so we can go ahead and get that implemented and spent before we lose that grant. The second item I have on for the day is for our bulletproof vest renewal grants. These grants run in 2-year cycles, so we usually have about 2 or 3 of them out at one time. We're requesting to write a grant for $12,564. It's a 50-50 match grant. That will once again be paid for out of our drug tax funds. That will replace 20 new vests over the next 2 years. For those that don't know, our bulletproof vests, typically we try to change it out between the 3 and the 5 year mark, because they're out of date by the 5 year mark. Back to the body cam one, I know I'm jumping around a little bit. That would be for 27 body cameras, and also all the infrastructure that would go to maintain and store all the data storage that would come with 27 cameras.
Do the cameras have sound on them?
Yes, sir.
What causes the vest to become obsolete?
Because bulletproof vests are technically made out of a bunch of threads that are Kevlar, and over time they break down to where they won't stop the round if they ever need to. So there's not a lot of documentation about this failure out there where they've ever failed, but the company recommends a change out time. So if you do have a vest on somebody and God forbid it ever fail after that date, the liability would fall back on us and our conscience also for that vest having
What do you
failed.
do with the old vest?
We sometimes we cycle them down to our transitioning in new people until we can get them new vests.
Can I buy one?
Sure.
We've talked about needing them up there.
I'm in harm's way here.
Now we could probably bring our old ones and line the counter right here with them.
The answer to that is no, but they are selling at some yard sales.
These body cams, that covers all your patrol. And
It will cover our patrol division, our school divisions, and our civil division. We did not do it for our court because most of what they're done is already covered under. They're under cameras a lot during the court system, and we may eventually see that we want to expand further, but this is just our starting point.
Mr. Chair, move for approval for both.
Yeah, all in favor? Any opposed? Go to work.
Thank y'all.
All right.
Thanks for writing these grants.
Yes, thank
Y'all
you,
welcome.
Captain. Did you want to do the proclamation that was pulled from consent agenda before the budget, or do
I
you
thought
want?
that was gonna be done on June 20th. I
Oh.
can't do it. Be
Yeah,
fine.
I just wanted to be read that way. Let it be known too about the event on June 2nd.
Okay.
I think it's good to get it done before the.
Let's see what I'm doing here. All right, this is a proclamation by the County Board of County Commissioners on the Elder Abuse Awareness Day. Whereas Person County elderly deserve to live safely, with dignity and independently as possible, with the necessary supports, and whereas elder abuse is most often defined as any act that harms a senior or jeopardizes his or her health or welfare, and whereas eliminating abuse to older persons is responsibility of the community, and whereas the County of Person is concerned about the risk to older residents who suffer from neglect or are victims of financial, emotional, or physical abuse, and whereas all residents should watch for signs of abuse such as physical trauma, withdrawal, depression, anxiety, fear of family members friends, and our caretakers. Now therefore, the Board of Commissioners of Percy County does hereby proclaim June the 2nd, 2016 is Elder Abuse Awareness Day and urge all citizens to recognize and support the needs of older persons to build safer communities in Percy County. Adopted this 16th day of May, 2016.
So I'll add to that, Region K, which includes Person County and 4 other counties, will have their second annual event and walk at 9 a.m. on June 2nd at Hub Sandsbury, and the first 150 participants at the walk will receive a T-shirt. And I'll ask if Maynell or Carlton or Melinda have anything to add.
It's a growing issue all over the world, in the country and state, in Person County. Carlton and Melinda can address the number of cases, calls they get through. Regarding that, we get quite a few referrals for what we call borderline cases. A lot of times it's just neglect, but we keep reading the paper about scams on the phone to the IRS, jury duty. Those are targeting, as a rule, older folks who are deemed to be more vulnerable to that kind of attack. So the bad people keep coming. People keep getting older, and we need to protect ourselves and our older citizens to keep this from happening. And that's what June 2nd, it should be all encompassing all year, but on June 2nd, we want to draw attention to it. We had 157 participants and volunteers last year. We hope to have that again. We have a speaker from the Department of Aging coming. We've got lots of vendor booths from folks that work with the elderly and their families. We want caregivers to come. We want senior citizens to come. We want citizens to come. We'd like to see a good turnout again this year. After this year, it'll go to another county within our region. So we set the bar pretty high last year. We want to raise it up even more to make the other counties stand up like we have.
Just would like to say, Commissioner, you can't remember just a few, I think it was last month before you, with the DSS annual report, that we do have full caseloads, and that Person County is an elderly population, and so we do support some of the outlets. We do work together a lot, and we hope to see you there. Thank you.
All right. We ready to move on?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, since I'm the elder on the board.
I thought he was reading it to you.
Don't show them your left arm around people.
All right, Heidi?
Did they vote on what?
Presentation of the fiscal year 2016-17 proposed budget.
All right, good morning, Commissioners. The clerk is coming around with a copy of the recommended budget as well as the PowerPoint slides that we're going to go through this morning,
It's getting bigger every year.
so that you can follow along with the recommendations. And hopefully technology will be on our side for this. It's my pleasure to present to you this morning your proposed spending plan for fiscal year 16-17. Here's a little bit of insight into how the recommendations were developed. So there's a commitment to conservative spending for the efficient operations of Person County government. We use the budget as a communication tool. This is the best way that we have for you all to communicate both with our workforce as well as your constituents. The funding decisions that we choose to move forward with must reflect the vision, the goals, and the priorities of the board. And then the focus of the majority of commissioners has been to continue down the path that we've started now a couple of years ago, to operate the county more like a business. And so despite government programs and private sector endeavors having very different roles, we have adopted many private sector values for our own services. And then, of course, we're committed to improving efficiencies. You'll hear a lot about that. Right-sizing government, and also reducing spending. Each year at your board retreat, funding priorities are agreed upon for the upcoming budget. This past February, the board identified the following priorities in ranking order for your 16-17 budget. I then used these priorities here to guide my spending recommendations. And here's a little bit of an example of how those are apparent in this recommended budget. So for example, the Economic Catalyst Fund is increasing to support your existing businesses. Our public safety departments will benefit from the implementation of the classification and compensation study. Our educational partners will see an increase to their capital funding. And the tax rate, of course, will remain flat despite doing more year after year. Fiscal year 17 will see the commencement of construction for our senior center, the construction of 2 broadband towers to improve communications and connectivity across the county. And we'll also have our first year of operating costs related to the Roxborough Little League Sportsplex. So you'll notice those large capital projects on that list. That's really what is driving the budget this year. And with a focus on implementing business principles, every successful entity needs a sound business plan. So as funding recommendations were made, I've analyzed the organization and our services to determine if, one, we can resize to reflect current realities. Can we reduce our operating costs? Are our supplies and vehicle ratios competitive with our market? And then what are we willing to pay for certain amenities and services? Some examples of that in this year's budget include reductions to spending in fuel. We were able to save about $106,000 in fuel. Across departments, our expenditures were reduced by about $815,000 from the requested. The next component of the business plan is asking, can we redesign to meet current and future demands? So this is really looking at, are our services necessary? Do we want to expand or decrease those services? And is the private sector or a nonprofit better able to deliver those services? An example of where you'll find this in the current budget is with the 4-H Yes program, which is housed in Cooperative Extension. The JCPC will now be funding a local nonprofit to provide for that service rather than county government. And then the third component, reposition to provide higher quality services. This is asking, are we providing excellent customer service? Is there a return on our investment? And are we retaining and appreciating our highest performing employees? I've mentioned the market study that's going into effect this year for our employees, and we're also doing a lot of customer service surveys. So you'll have seen most recently the inspections department has undergone that. We've done that for all of our internal service departments as well, and we'll see more of that in the coming fiscal year. Now, of course, I cannot propose a budget in a vacuum, so I have to take into account the current realities that we're working in. We consider the scope of services and our willingness to pay for those. We look at the economic environment in which we're working. We have to take a look, of course, at the fiscal health and history of the county as an organization. And then we also have to contain the priorities of the board as well as the public and make sure that we're addressing those. So some of you have seen this chart before. This column here that you're seeing as mandated services are specifically mentioned in general statutes for what counties have to provide. Now, this column here on the right are more of your quality of life type services. Some of them, while they may address safety, like inspections, they are not mandated to be provided. So in a snapshot, you don't have to count them all. I'll tell you there's 12 mandated, 19 optional, but this is not a comprehensive list here. But this does give you some feel for the fact that Person County is providing, comprehensive services well above and beyond what is mandated by the state to provide. Partly we do this because the General Assembly, for example, woefully inadequately funds schools. So we end up, going above and beyond just the construction and capital costs for education and end up helping subsidize their operating costs for that. So while we have a lot to be proud of, these services become very costly. And we continue to face the necessity of bringing our spending in line with what we're willing and able to pay. So the second reality that we're working in is your economic environment. And here's one indicator of how we're doing in the economy here. This is looking at single-family building permits. And I'm sorry to say that there's no spike projected in the coming fiscal year. Relatively flat, actually projected to be down slightly. And then, of course, the numbers on top are the city, and they've seen, virtually no growth in their single-family building permits. Another indicator of your economic environment are the deeds that we're recording for real estate and others through our Register of Deeds office. We're projecting these to be down by about 88 in the current year, and we're seeing still a high number of foreclosed property transfers. A third reality that we look at, of course, is the fiscal health and history, and I know that the general public doesn't find this all that exciting, but it's important to us administrators to know that our bond rating has remained constant, and as well, our debt service is low when we compare our annual debt payment divided by our total expenses. We're at about 8% for Person County. Our population group average is around 11%. And we're seeing very modest growth in the tax base. We'll look at that a little bit more on the next slide. Fund balance remains at a healthy level, and then your tax rate has remained consistent for about 10 years now. Here's your tax base. The blue is the property taxes. The orange is your vehicles. And we are projecting about a 2.4% increase from 16-17, which includes, that 2.4 includes both the property and the vehicle. So, all in all, that's relatively flat. It's basically going up a little bit, but not too much. So your property tax base is projected to be $4.12 billion, with the increase of $80 million being attributed to the investment from Spuntech this year. Your DMV values are increasing. Those rates aren't changing, but their collection rate now is so strong. They're at 99.9% collection rate. So that's why you're getting a slight uptick in the DMV base. Another fiscal health and history indicator, of course, is your unassigned fund balance, which in layman's terms is the county's savings account. This, what you're looking at here is the targeted amount is the red line, 18% of your total expenditures. The purple line or blue line below that is what the local government commission requires by law at a minimum before they'll come shut you down. So we want to certainly stay above that. And then the yellow line that's showing some variability is the county's fund balance, and you can sort of see how that has either dipped or increased depending on, your spending reductions is one way to do that. And we're going to talk about fund balance a little bit more as a revenue source here in a few minutes. So for 16-17, your revenues are increasing by $1.3 million or 2.4%. And that puts your general fund budget at the $59.4 million that you're seeing on the slide. Your general fund, just as a reminder, is what the services that you're funding through your property taxes. And I also need to note that if you're trying to do an apples-to-apples comparison of general fund, there is an accounting change this year due to the self-funded health insurance. So we've had to create an internal service fund within the general fund, and so that's going to look like a large increase in that amount, but really that is an accounting change. I want to be clear about that, and not a spending change. And then the all other funds, that includes stormwater, economic catalyst, person industries, and the recycling center, the 911 fund, water and sewer. So everything else is contained in that $64 million figure. And then the next slides that we're going to go through are going to compare your current year budget to what we're seeing for next year and account for that $1.3 million increase that we're having in spending with our revenues and expenditures. In a nutshell, the increase is coming from the property and vehicle and sales tax, and the increased expenditures are being attributed to the capital improvement plan next year. So here are the revenues. We've talked about the overall increases. 1 penny on the tax rate next year is $433,000. The context for that is about $11,000 more than the current year 1 penny rate. On the increases in your revenues next year, we're seeing the real property go up, the vehicles go up, and the sales tax go up. And you can see the additional amounts that we'll realize next year based on our projections. Now, we do have some decreases in revenues that I wanted to note for you as well. So both your human service departments are looking at less funding coming in from the state and federal government next year. So for DSS, that equates to $140,000 left. less, and on the health department, approximately $24,000 less. Your recycling revenues continue to be rock bottom. We're projecting $86,000 less than current year, just when we thought we couldn't do any worse. We can. And then EMS fees are coming in less as well, $130,000, and that is primarily attributed to poor collections and serving patients who are unable to pay. Here's the slide on fund balance. I mentioned we'd talk about this a little bit more. So the amount budgeted for fund balance for 16 is the $3.5 million, which is an increase of $750,000 from your current year. Growing or spending fund balance is a very delicate balance for us. Too high of a fund balance can signal that the tax rate you're currently at is not optimal, or too low of a fund balance can signal that your spending is out of line with what you can afford to be doing. So you're kind of living above your means, if you will. The increased appropriation then from fund balance is due to the capital improvement plan expenditure of 2.34. So you are increasing from current year of just over $19,000 coming from fund balance for capital in up to the $2.3 million next year. Some of the drivers of that $2.3 million increase are for our educational partners. We're doing some paving, some roofing. We have some county roofing in there, and then an HVAC replacement at one of the middle schools, and some ADA upgrades for the schools as well. Then I also want to mention that we do plug fund balance into the operating costs, and you see that in DSS and the health department, which we do every year to help balance the timing of their revenues. And then we're also appropriating fund balance in debt service next year by $400,000. That's an increase of $200,000 in debt service. I have a little bit of a pause with the slides. Okay. So we're talking about resizing, redesigning, and repositioning the county to improve efficiency. And what that really means is that we're doing more with less. There are two competing issues facing the organization and the community, and that's a citizenry that wants government to do more, while at the same time reducing our spending and maintaining the tax rate. The tax rate remains at the 2005 level, but obviously everything in 2016 costs more than it did in 2005. And our services have greatly expanded since that time. So we now have the full cost of operating the Sportsplex, which is projected at $80,000 next year. We are conservatively estimating our revenues at $66,000 and hope that that gap will diminish there. You can see some of your other large capital projects that are basically expansions of county programs. Next year, as part of that construction of the broadband towers, $1.5 million will go to radio equipment for our emergency responders. And then this will be our third consecutive year where county departments have tried to keep their spending flat for year after year. And this is, as I said, would be the third year. So we're trying to do all of this, of course, without raising taxes. A few of the expenditure highlights for you this morning. I mentioned that I had cut about $815,000 from the departmental spending requests, and you can see where some of those adjustments are coming. I'll talk for a second about the Person Industries and the Person County Recycling Center subsidy. So overall, we're seeing a decrease of about $204,000 from the general fund. The subsidy, however, was a little over $700,000 in your current year, and you're projecting then a subsidy for those two services of about $508,000. Now here is a slide, of course, that our county employees are interested in. The heart of our operations, of course, are our outstanding county employees. But like any organization that utilizes employees for service delivery, that's also one of our major cost drivers, is the personnel. So of course, my goal this year was not to increase the personnel costs. So I did not increase the size of government. I did not consider any requests for full-time positions, despite there being needs for county departments. Rather, we've continued to examine every vacancy that comes up. I talk with every department head about, can we do business differently? Can we maintain a cut in this position and not fill it? So throughout the year, we're evaluating all the vacancies. I'm asking the board to consider reducing approximately 6 positions in next year's budget. These are full-time positions, which would net a savings of almost $300,000. I'm sorry, that's getting cut off a little bit at the bottom. So just shy of $300,000 in next year's cost, just due to the salary and the benefits. These positions that you see, 3 of them are vacant: the general services, the tax, and the PATS positions. The next 2, PI and Register of Deeds, are related to transitions of employees, either through retirement or the election. And then the last one is a grant-funded position, where the grant I mentioned has gone away and is now going to a nonprofit. So those are the position cuts that we're looking at for next year. During our budget work sessions, we will provide you with some workload measures for any of these positions that you're interested in talking about, so that you're able to make a more data-driven decision and not an emotional decision about those positions. Here's some context in terms of reducing our full-time employees. This is since 2014. You can see that we've decreased our FTEs by 16.2. And then here is a slide on the workforce funding, what employees will receive next year. The merit pay remains in place, and the cost of that is actually coming down this year. Some of that is due to the position cuts, some of that is due to retirements. And just to give you some context, we talk about cost of living adjustments. A COLA of about 1%, which is what it would be approximately this year, would cost you just shy of $300,000. And the difference there is that we fund merit on an anniversary date rather than having to fund an entire year of a 1% adjustment in COLA. So employees are getting either a 2% merit pay increase. I've mentioned that we're implementing the pay and classification study for public safety. The cost of that is actually coming in lower than what we had initially planned for when we presented this at your board retreat. And that is because your employees are receiving merit, so their salaries have gone up by our own efforts, and so the cost of that next year will be $180,000. And there's your health insurance costs, which we, of course, just talked about. The per employee cost for that is there. There's one other thing I forgot to mention. We're getting a little gift from the state this year. They are increasing the retirement contribution for the employer. I think it's 0.25%, and so that will cost the county next year $146,000 to maintain that. And you will see that, I think, for 2 more years. This is a 3-year increase. For our educational partners, so I mentioned that county departments are submitting flat spending requests. The schools submitted a 12.04% increase in their request, which would have cost 2.88 cents on the tax rate. I am recommending that we fully fund the technology request that they submitted to us, and that both the capital and the current expense, this is the operating capital I'm referring to in the second column, that those are held flat from current year. They're getting an increase in the CIP appropriation, which is causing their total funding to actually increase despite holding those 2 flat. And then our other, actually I have a couple of measures related to the schools. So let me explain this chart for you. This is your total average daily membership, which is a point-in-time snapshot of enrollment at our schools. And when I say total, this actually includes the charter schools. This is not just Person County schools. So this is our 2 charter schools as well, which helps flatten out the decrease that we're seeing in enrollment. Let's see. Total ADM is anticipated to decrease by 55 students from fiscal year 16 to 17. And we've seen a decrease in ADM of 182 students since fiscal year 10. Current expense has continued to grow, however, as you can see, while ADM, average daily membership of our students, has not. Our public school enrollment is anticipated to decrease by the 55 students that I mentioned, and our charter school enrollment is anticipated to be flat. Let me also clarify, so the total ADM includes our charter schools, and I mentioned the 2 charter schools here. It actually includes all of the charter schools for which Person County students attend. So that's Voyager, Orange County Schools. So it's not just the Bethel Hill and Roxborough Community School, and I wanted to clarify that for you. And here is a statistic that we're all very proud of. So what you're seeing on the slide is the context of the teacher supplements, and these are our regional comparisons. So Person County there is in the gold bar. You can see how we stack up against our regional. So this is not the sort of the state average, but on a state average basis, so there are 115 LEAs out there. Person County for the second year provides the 8th highest teacher salary supplement in the state. So that is substantial. Of course, numbers 1 through 7 are the players that you would imagine: Wake, Durham, Charlotte, Mecklenburg, Chapel Hill, Carrboro, Orange County, Guilford, Chatham, and then number 8 is Person County Schools. So our next educational partner here is, of course, the Piedmont Community College. They will also receive an increase overall, and that is because of the additional funds going into the CIP. But we kept the recurrent expense flat. They did not request any operating capital from us this year, which was a first, so that is reflective of what they asked for. And again, they'll receive an overall increase based on that. I also wanted to mention that the current expense column does contain the $10,000 that we fund to the Small Business Center as part of their operating costs. Another important partner to Person County government, of course, is our volunteer fire departments. So we are looking at funding them according to their 2-year contract, which is what they had asked us for. The amount that they'll receive next year in total for all departments is $547,902. We've decided to require the audit every other year. So this upcoming year, they will not be required to do an audit. So we don't have funding in there for that. And we have kept the capital fund, which helps with their purchasing of equipment needs. We've kept that in there at $90,000 that is spread out over all of our departments. And then I also wanted to include the Viper radio upgrades that we mentioned as part of the CIP. $500,000 will go to that need. And the city of Roxborough, who of course is not a volunteer fire department, but they have a separate contract with us that goes up 2% every other year. It is in next year's budget for them to receive that 2% as required by their contract. Here's some outside agency funding. These you can think of sort of as your quality of life expenses. These do not go to county government, they go to other entities. The senior center has the construction costs in there, plus the $100,000 we appropriate to their operating costs. The museum is slated to get a new roof out of your CIP next year, and we spend on average, this is an approximate number, but we spend a recurring cost of about $64,000 on the museum annually. Also recurring costs, there's a request from Judge Galloway for drug court. He is asking for $20,000. There is $10,000 recommended in the 17 budget.
He asked for how much?
He asked for 20, and I put half of that in, so you may want to make that adjustment during a work session. The HALO position is the request that we have funded in your current year for $60,000 for the district attorney. We did not receive a request from him, but I expect that will be forthcoming. And there is a request from the Chamber of Commerce to help fund the Personality Festival, so I will remind you of that during a work session as well. So here's how the public can engage now in this process. We have 2 work sessions planned for you. You can see the dates and times there. And then, of course, we are required to have a public hearing. That will be held at your next meeting on June 6th. And this is my favorite part of the budget. The proposal is now in your hands to adjust and to revise, and of course, to make sure that the funding decisions reflect your priorities, goals, and visions of the board. And the last slide here is just how you can get more information. This entire presentation and the entire budget document are available to everyone on our website. We also provide hard copies in the clerk's office and at the library. And my door is always open. I welcome folks to call me with questions or clarifications. Happy to talk with them. Commissioners, that is your fiscal year 16-17 proposed budget. And I look forward to working with all 5 of you on this process.
Does anybody have any questions of Heidi at this time?
In one slide for the Viper radios, you have
Yes.
1.5 million, and then you go to the volunteer slide, it's
500,000.
And then if you add up the capital, operating we provide and the Viper, it's something at 1.5.
Sure, yeah, that, the 1.5 includes, the radios for our EMS, it includes it for,
Okay.
Roxborough, my department, so there's other departments included in the 1.5.
I wasn't aware we was bound for Roxborough too.
I'm sorry?
I wasn't aware we was bound for Roxborough too.
They do provide, service for the
Okay.
county.
Any other questions we can answer this time?
One thing that comes to mind, could you get a list of calls that the city makes in the county
Yes.
as opposed to inside the city?
Yes. We've already worked on that, and we'll have that available for you
Great
at a
minds think alike.
work session.
All right. Any more discussion on that item? Chairman's report, I don't have anything to add to what's been said. Manager, you got any kind of report?
I did. I wanted to take this opportunity, Commissioners, to introduce you to our summer intern. Good morning. This is Ellis Johnson, sitting here in the front row. He will be with us this summer. He is just completed his first year of graduate study in the MPA program at UNC. And we will have lots of projects for him to work on, including the budget. So please join me in welcoming him here for the summer, and we really look forward to having you, Ellis. Thanks for being here. I also wanted to remind you that County Assembly Day is scheduled through the association for this Wednesday, the 18th. We'll be visiting the legislature, and I have Chairman Newell, Commissioner Jeffers, and Commissioner Clayton, as well as myself, who are planning to attend on Wednesday. And I also wanted to let you know that the normal monthly Economic Development Commission meeting that is normally held on Thursday of this week has been canceled and is rescheduled for the 26th if you want to join us. That's all I had.
Okay. Now, the reason for canceling that, because we got a EDC meeting in Durham.
We have the RTRP State of the Region breakfast that Thursday that begins at 7 o'clock in the morning.
All right. Any commissioners got anything they want to talk about? Speak now, forever hold your peace.
Good.
All right. We need to go into closed session. Let's see, for the purpose of discussion of matters related to the location, expansion of industries and other businesses in the county, economic development. Need Heidi York, Brenda Reeves, Ron Aycock, Stuart Gilbert, Russell Jones. Do I hear a motion we go in closed session?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
May I also add our intern, Ellis Johnson, to attend as well?
Okay.
Thank
Does
you.
that motion include that?
Yes.
Okay. All right. We are in closed session. Y'all gotta go.
2 minute break.
2-minute break.
2-minute break.
I break. Run.
I'm trying to get me one of them bulletproof vests. I'm sitting up here in the hallway.